Welcome back to the Winner Circle, everybody. I've got Marty here from Atlantic.net. He is the latest winner in the 2026 Big Innovation Awards. He is a character. He's been in the business for over 30 years, building the cloud and building the secure cloud. And we're really excited to have Marty on the show. So Marty, congratulations and welcome to the Winner Circle.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
So for those of us that don't kind of really know you, tell us a little bit about you. I don't know how anybody doesn't know you if you've been in the internet for 30 years. But tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about the company you founded so long ago, Atlantic.net.
Yeah, this is our 31st year in business, moving on to 32nd year now. It's 2026. So we started early on. We were in the access portion with dial-up and T1s and ISDN and all that fun stuff in the early days. And we've kind of ridden the waves of data centers and co-location and telecom and cloud. And now we're into AI and all the fun stuff that comes with that. So it's been an exciting time and it's been a fun ride. And it's been a lot of fun overall, just being in the industry.
Yeah, and you guys are one of those few providers that has gone after kind of a niche market. And I don't want to, it's not real niche, but you've gone after that security focused customer, which in the cloud is huge, but you guys are taking it beyond just to get all the HIPAA compliance and all of that stuff. Tell us how you, a little bit about how you kind of got into that, having gotten into the cloud and what draw you there and kind of what the challenges are.
Well, it's a good question. What happened was initially everybody was, obviously moving to the cloud. And the big question was, how do I get my hosting to a cloud-based system? And what we saw was that as customers got online and got onto the cloud and got their apps there, the next stage was now what? And the next part of that was a lot of the customers wanted some kind of security layer and a observation layer, the ability to see what's going on with what they've got. And obviously, healthcare, there's a tremendous need for that. It's patient information. And healthcare, I think somewhere close to 25% of GDP, US GDP today. So it is a huge industry. It's obviously not necessarily the trailing, bleeding edge of technology because, you're dealing with human lives. But it has, very, very important workloads that need to make sure that not only are they compliant, but that everything is secure and that they can keep track of what's going on.
Well, and you guys have had a tremendous year. You've done a lot of work in securing the cloud even further for all these AI workloads. Tell us a little bit about the preparation that has gone into, preparing for. I can't even imagine. I mean, they say that healthcare is going to be probably the biggest beneficiary of AI.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because you're kind of inventing things before things have really happened. So as an example, one of the big pushes is obviously everybody knows LLMs, large language models, and that's kind of leading to agentic models. So you've got these AI agents, right? People call them chatbots. But the way you have to also think about it is that you have these agents that do very specific tasks. So let's take in a healthcare setting. You might have an AI agent that's in the ambulance. So you bring a patient into the ambulance, you want to take a look, you take a picture and the AI is going to analyze what it thinks is going on. It's got to take that information and then it has to send it to perhaps the AI that's running in the ER. So by the time the ambulance gets to the ER, those two can communicate and synchronize in terms of what they think it is, so that by the time the patient gets there, maybe the doctors are already moving forward with what they think they need to do to potentially save someone's life. So obviously you need those two things to coordinate, those two different agents to coordinate, but you have to have them coordinate in a way that's secure, that's reliable, and compliant, as well as compliant. And you have to have a layer of observability, which gives everyone the ability to see what's actually going on. If something's getting stuck, if it's not going fast enough, is there too much latency? Meaning, is it taking too long to get the data between these different? I'm making a fairly simple model, but there could be hundreds of different agentic AIs running, and you've got to be able to make sure that they're all able to communicate and facilitate whatever you're trying to get done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I was amazed. I happened to be in a hospital room, not myself,
No.
visiting mom.
Okay.
But I was amazed because I walked in the room and I'm a big nerd and I look around at tech that's around the room, and she was in a pretty standard hospital room, but I looked up and there was a camera and a name on it. I don't remember. It was AII or something like that, like AIEYE or
Okay.
and I ended up looking it up, and it was a basically a the first time I had seen AI or in a hospital setting. Um, and according to literature there, it was basically a tool to help evaluate how often patients were being cared for and if they were being cared for on the right schedule. And it was basically looking at people coming in and out and what they were doing. Just that alone amazed me. You think about the payload that brings. You're talking about HD video, and processing that HD video to, up in the cloud. That you don't want anybody else looking at that. So what are you guys are the HIPAA compliant, HIPAA secure cloud hosting company. What differentiates you from the larger guys that, set you apart, that where your customers are really relying on you?
Well, like I said, the big challenge is doing it in a way that is compliant, especially when you're using new technologies like AI chatbot type configurations. How are you gonna make sure that it stays within a secure enclave versus it going potentially to the public internet or going somewhere it's not supposed to go? So, because this is all pretty avant-garde and, the future, there everybody wants to be very careful, everybody's trying to do the best they can in terms of being compliant, while also taking advantage of the technology. So, obviously, we're just scratching the surface of where things are gonna be in the next 5 years. I kind of liken it to, it's the dial-up internet of AI, right? It's
Yeah.
because the workloads are getting bigger, the processing is getting faster, the models are getting trained, I mean, almost every few weeks, the models are improving right now. So I think it's just being thoughtful and being able to help, organizations or healthcare organizations, navigate getting their AI online in a way that is gonna be effective, but also compliant. And I think with the big companies where, you go to a larger company, there's a lot of talking heads, but sometimes they can't get things done just because they're big and they're also, sometimes behind in terms of where things are moving. So, um, for us, being a boutique operation, we see that customers that get the best value from us are the customers that appreciate that.
Now, you're in healthcare, you're also in biotech, and that's one of the big, huge areas that I think AI is really looking at. It's not only looking at, us, it's looking at all our cells and everything else,
Absolutely.
and how to start looking at it. How did you guys prepare for all the growth in this? I mean, we've seen this, 2025 explosion of AI. I'm calling 2026 as the year of the chief AI officer. That'll be on every board going forward. How did you guys prepare for all this huge, massive compute coming at you?
Well, obviously, we didn't expect. I don't think anybody expected. Obviously, the OpenAI kind of kicked off. That was the Netscape moment for AI in terms of capturing people's imagination of what's possible. And it's kind of, hit a kind of a tidal wave of demand because of that. Um, I think it's something that you have to really be thoughtful about, obviously. It's something that there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of what can we do today? What will we be able to do in 6 months? And, kind of lining up a path that gets you to where you wanna be, not just today, but where do you wanna be 6 months from now? Where do you wanna be a year from now? What are you gonna be capable of doing that you may not even be able to do today? So, it's something that because it's like introducing the internet. What can you do on the internet, right? So in the beginning, it was, the killer app was email, then websites came, and then of course there's so many things we can do on the internet today. So I think it's kind of the same thing with AI. It's not the same, but maybe there's a parallel path because it's sort of, it's almost left to the imagination of products and services you can create.
Yeah, well, yeah, you mentioned dial-up. I remember those early days when your kind of head exploded when you're like, "I can do this," and then when they told you you're going to have a full megabyte up and down, you were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
Right? And so it does evolve very quickly, and your brain keeps exploding.
there was that point that everybody had when they got on the internet where they had to come to grips with the idea they're not gonna be able to see it all. Right? You just can't see every
You can
website.
try.
Yeah, you
You
start
can
out trying,
try.
and you realize it's just too big. Um, and maybe that's kind of a parallel path here.
Yeah. Now you guys partnered with Nvidia. You're one of their partners, and you've built this kind of new GPU backed infrastructure. How does that partnership impact your business?
Well, obviously, NVIDIA being the market leader, one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable company in the world, it validates a lot of things that we do. Um, we've had good luck. We've gone to their, trade shows and talked to, a number of customers there. Um, it's obviously they validated the marketplace. There's, AMD, there's Cerebras, which is kind of, some new players that are in the space. But obviously, NVIDIA is the market leader. The other thing about NVIDIA that people kind of understate, it's not, people really focus on the NVIDIA chips, but NVIDIA actually has three advantages, which are beyond the chips. They have chips which would be number one. The second thing was that they bought a company called Mellanox, which pioneered InfiniBand, which is a very high speed networking fabric. So once you've done the computation, you need to be able to move that data very, very quickly. Um, so that's really, really important. And I think people kind of forget that. How are you going to move the data between after you're done computing it? And then the third part is that they have the software layer, which is called CUDA, which is what a lot of the developers write for, or write to, I should say. So because they have this interoperability with the whole industry at this point, and everybody uses it. It's kind of they got these three pillars that are really, really important for AI. And I don't think that you can really displace that if you only have chips.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like the old Windows, Mac, Linux. It's if all the software is written for Windows, Windows
yeah,
wins.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously as the industry grows, it's gonna move on, to the standards in the space. So right now that's NVIDIA, their CUDA, and of course their their InfiniBand infrastructure. I mean, there's there's people arguing that there may be ways to displace, but we need to see that first.
Yeah, I know that there's displacement talks, especially from Google's architecture, which is completely different. It's going to be interesting because my guess is we'll end up with 4 or 5 different types of things, and they'll all be unique and specialized purpose. With NVIDIA maybe being the kind of the catch-all for everything. You guys do have such a focus on healthcare and biotech and security. I can't imagine what the cybersecurity pressures like on those two sectors. Where do you think they're most vulnerable right now?
I mean, obviously there's, when security started out, like if we were to take like a basic firewall, it was more port filtering, or looking at it, in a very, very rudimentary way. Now it's moved more towards applications where you're doing packet inspection and you're trying to, identify potential threats before they can even enter your network, or detect potential exfiltration where people are trying to get your data. Um, Probably the weakest part is still the human, component. If people get, phishing attacks, or you know, get click on the wrong links and, give the wrong information to the wrong people. That's, always going to be the weak link in security. I don't think that's ever going to change. Obviously, everybody, you're always trying to improve that. You've got two-factor authentication now, which didn't exist, 10 or
Yeah,
15
well,
years
humans
ago.
are definitely zero trust, right?
Yeah. So I think the other side of this is going to be, education and keeping staff and teams and crews up to date on best practices. And that's another part of the business that's going to explode with AI in terms of understanding, like, are people using AI to impersonate people, right? How are you going
Hmm.
to make sure that you're actually communicating with the person that they identify themselves as?
Yeah, authentication becomes a very challenging. We were speaking with another winner, QuickFi, and they authenticate expense reports and stuff like that. And using AI now, it's this deluge of fake expenses that any AI can fake any expense, and so they're having to combat that. It's going to be a real issue, this authentication and what's real and what's human. Now, you guys build all these, super secure platforms that are compliant with HIPAA, and I think the other one's high tech is the other standard out there. How do those compliance frameworks kind of have to change as AI comes more into this world?
Think it really needs to be modernized for AI. I mean, like I said, there probably should be some sort of secure data interchange format, like there's for other industries like manufacturing. But just because there needs to be a standardized way for AIs to talk to each other that are outside of, if they're going between hospitals and or different health providers like insurance companies, um, that probably needs to be standardized. It's hard to say exactly what that should be because the industry keeps changing so fast, and typically legislation is very slow. It's sometimes years behind. So
Yeah.
hopefully we don't get to a point where there's a problem and then we're reactive to that. But I think the whole guardrails and frameworks of what the expectations of everyone should probably be spelled out by some kind of central authority so everybody's on the same page. Just like they are with HIPAA. I mean, HIPAA is not, you know, anything groundbreaking, but it sets a standard that everybody has an expectation that this is what everybody else is also doing. So you're not unique in terms of being proactive where someone else may not be.
Yeah, the whole I think going back to that authentication piece. That's the big piece for me where, I think it's in every aspect of AI that I think we've seen is we're going to have this, you know, this constant question of is it AI or real, and
Yeah,
can
I
I
mean,
trust it or real?
as an example, so, you can have AI bots that are going around, they go on LinkedIn, they're going to go onto YouTube, get, voice samples or video samples, start calling coworkers and pretending it's you, for example, to get, exfiltrate some kind of data. And then of course, then you'll need an AI to detect if it's an AI to, to have countermeasure similar to
Well, as a marketing guy, we're seeing that already. It's AI tools to help you write so that the AI tools don't know it was written by AI.
yeah, okay. So now you've got like
And
some
I,
kind of
and I keep thinking we're really very quickly getting back to that world where it was in the very beginning when they would put a Amazon voice device and a Google voice device next to each other and make them, fight.
yeah,
I feel like we're there.
it's like the
Um,
inception of AI, right? Like the movie
yeah.
Inception.
Now you had talked about these AIs talking to each other and kind of this common language between them. Is MCP? Are you guys working on that at all? Or is that a potential, savior for these kind of open AI, communication paths?
I mean, there's MCP, but I don't know. Once again, because it's not really standardized yet, and it's still, it's it's conceptually could work, but does it work in production, and what are the expectations from it? Um, so yeah, I mean, we're seeing it, but it's probably not where it needs to be. But the bigger question is, where does it need to go, right? Because once again, how is this all going to shake out, and what are the kind of use cases going to be? We don't know kind of like the killer app yet. There's not the real challenge is going to be when there's that killer app where everyone's like, look, I need to be running XYZ or this bot or that bot or, whatever the application is. And now you've got potentially millions of instances running all over the place on people's phones, on Internet of Things devices and potentially in people's houses. That's something you have to be very thoughtful about because if those get hijacked or, confused or, told to do the wrong things, it could be
Well,
very,
yeah.
very problematic.
I mean, if you didn't know your voice powered, I don't want to say her name. Uh, Amazon device it knows your voice over other voices, so they're already doing that. They're already identifying people inside, and if they're doing that, then you can be tricked. Now, you've been in the industry a long time. Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing for 2026. What are you seeing for AI and cybersecurity and infrastructure? What are some of the trends that you're seeing come out this year?
I mean, the biggest challenge with AI is, of course, running models. There's high bandwidth memory. People want more and more of that. There's obviously shortages on everything, whether it's memory, servers, really all hardware. It's very, very difficult to get. It's difficult to get data center space. It's difficult to get power. So capacity is always a challenge. And I mean that at every level. Like I said, it's the data center, getting the chips, getting the servers, getting networking. There's lots and lots of challenges in terms of getting that deployed. If you haven't already taken care of that, right? If you planned ahead and said, okay, well, I know what I'm going to need for next year, but I'd say it's getting tighter than looser, and it moves like a commodity, right? When there's shortages, the prices all go up for everything. Um, just like oil, when there's shortages of oil. So, so you've got a price increase there, and then there's the availability of the parts themselves. So, even if you have, there might be a list price, but can you get those parts? For example, OpenAI, I think bought something like 40% of the DRAM for the world.
Well,
So
and it is,
one
it's
company,
amazing,
one company bought 40% of the world's DRAM.
yeah, your laptops are going to be more expensive or slower, people. Yeah, I mean it's down to that, right? We're down to that. We're down to suffering in other industries because of AI, which is a little crazy. Yeah. Any big predictions you see out there coming in the AI space?
I think there'll probably be some big breakthroughs. Obviously, there's, Anthropic, there's OpenAI, that, the big guys. I think there's going to probably be some specialty models that might break out, that are for specific vertical industries. So that might be interesting. I think there'll probably be at least the early frameworks for some kind of legislation about AI or AI enablement, so that, are you opting into it, or are you at least aware that if you have an AI that's making decisions, for example, if it's making life-saving, um, decisions, you probably wanna at least be aware or opt in or something like that, versus
Yeah.
it being something passive where, it's happening without your knowledge. Um, so I think a lot of it is, the biggest challenge, I wouldn't say challenge, the most interesting problems are really social, right? How do people wanna consume AI, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, people are in some cases, people are afraid of it. Uh, there's concern, what can it do with your data? Obviously, there's the whole job characteristic, right? In terms of people worried about their jobs. So it's really a lot of it is, I think, in 2026 is people coming to terms with how are we going to interact with AI as a site? Like, we made that decision with the internet, right? How are we going to interact with it? And we have some we have some limitations in some cases that we don't, in terms of how people are allowed to use the internet. So, it might be more restrictive in some states, like I have specific laws for, like, as an example, for minors of how they're going to be able to use the internet in some states versus others where they may not have any
Right.
laws. They have more freedoms. But what are we going to do with that AI? Is that going to be a state specific issue? Is that going to be federal? And what is the general expectation of what we should expect AI to bring us, and how are we going to interact with it? It's almost like talking to about an alien or something, you know? How
Well, if you're watching Pluribus,
Yeah,
are you
I haven't
watching
watched it yet.
Pluribus on?
I haven't seen it yet.
You have not?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Well, I won't ruin it, but I was watching it. There was a direct parallel to AI technology in this show, and Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show, was actually asked. He said, "Did you do this on purpose?" And he was like, "No, but boy, did it really come true." But so you've spent 2 years kind of preparing for this moment. So congratulations on the insight and having it pay off for you. So you've done this infrastructure bit, and the AI companies have done their bit of developing the tools and the software. Um, what are you telling your customers, your business leaders? What do they need to prepare for in the next 18 months now that we've got all this infrastructure?
I think the big thing is, don't lock into any one solution because it's changing so fast, right? You're seeing a leapfrog in terms of, like I said, when you look at Anthropic and Claude Code versus, OpenAI versus Gemini, right? Gemini came out, Gemini, was kind of an also ran, and now they've got, they came
It
out with
was the
Nano.
worst of the worst, right?
Yeah,
It
and then
was
they have
it was
Nano
it
Banana,
was
which was amazing.
ridiculous.
So, and they kind of, now they're catching up. So I would say, keep an open mind to it all. And the other thing you have to remember is that because those AI models are going to underpin whatever the services are that run on top of them, if those underlying models change, it could break something in your workflow. So
Yeah,
it's something you have to be really, really aware of, because it's not something that is, it's not a static product that you're putting in, like a modem, right? Where it's just going to answer the phone every time. It's like you're putting something in that is kind of like a live animal. It's changing. It's like I said, almost every 4 weeks. So the way it works, you can vary in the months, in months at a time. So if you lock into something and you build a workflow, and then suddenly it doesn't behave, the underlying AI doesn't behave like you had originally planned, it could be something that works very well, but then could break in 2 or 3 months.
Well, I think the impact is even be bigger. I mean, if you think about, if you went to talk to your doctor and your doctor was trained 40 years ago and didn't keep getting up to date, right? Not only is your doctor, kind of behind with the information, but he's stuck, right? I mean, these AIs can be stuck in their worlds with, limited amount of information. And if you lock down on something, then you're limiting your business in a big way. It's kind of like having that, kind of when you're locked in your thinking of a certain way. Well, if your AI is locked in their thinking or the process, you're going to be locked into the same results or worse results, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, because the models are changing, there's no dominant. I can't, it's so early. I mean, we're so early in this, and obviously there's a lot of excitement. Maybe sometimes gets ahead of itself, but I think it's really, really important to keep an open mind about what it is and what it can do, and what the expectations are going to be, because they're it's moving very, very fast. Probably the fastest technology I've ever seen. Everybody in the industry is having trouble keeping up with this. We do this all day.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like as you said, you use one tool and then another tool comes out with a feature that you're like, oh my god, I could do it so much better. I
Yeah.
could do everything I do better. And then Gemini's 5 times faster. And you're like, oh, I could do the same thing over there and 5 times faster. I mean, so I'm finding there's just a limit to human capacity at this point of, there's so many things we can do now. It's organizing the resources to go get it done. And I guess with the agents and everything else, we're going to have a lot of that will go away. But right now there's just too much to do
Yeah, I mean,
with the output.
it could be that because if you've got an AI that's enabling you to do so much more than you were now, okay, now I've got 10 things I have the potential. I can explore the entire, white space that I couldn't do before, right? I could only do 1 or 2%. Now I can do 98%, but that's, is that a blessing or a curse?
Well,
Obviously it's a blessing,
people,
but
when people think their jobs are going away, there will be jobs that go away. Task jobs will go away. If you're doing a task a computer will do, look for another job. But we still need human capacity. That's what we're doing it all for, right? Is to either reduce or optimize the hours that we're doing things. And so, it's just interesting. We're still limited by the number of hours of humanity.
yeah, it's interesting because, if you say in early 1900s, where most people were agrarian farmer type people, they would probably say most of their jobs say aren't even real jobs. Like you're sitting in an
Yeah.
office, you're in a chair, it's air conditioned all day. That's not a job.
I don't have to walk. Yeah. I don't pick up anything.
Yeah. So I think, taking me as an example, when I was born, my industry didn't exist. So the industries that are being born today, or they're going to potentially our kids will work at, will look very, very different than the industries obviously we came from. And it could potentially be, what if we're at this, cusp of change where, where we might have been living in the dark ages relative to how the future, sees us. Like,
Yeah.
they lived with no AIs, and they did everything manually and by themselves. I mean,
It's such an exciting time.
it
It's going to be very challenging. I'm sure our parents said that when the internet came around, or TV or radio in the day. But it's going to be interesting. What are the big innovations you're working on for the next 24 months? You don't have to
like
spell them out exactly,
yeah,
but
well, we have a lot of it is security and observability. What we're really seeing right now is, uh, you know, as an example, if you've got GPUs that are running your AI, do you have the capacity? Do you have the memory? Do you have the bandwidth that you're actually using them at maximum efficiency? Because running these is very, very processor intensive and very, very power intensive. So it's expensive. So if you're running your infrastructure, let's say it slows down to 25 or 30% of what it's capable of, just keeping it running, at maximum speed and not having it get clogged can, cut your cost by a third, right? So, I'm sorry, you can increase your efficiency by two thirds, right? 3x, right? Going from
right.
30 to 100%. The reason that's important is that if you've got a competitive model, if I'm running a business and you're running a business, mine's, running at 3x the speed, you won't be able to compete, right? So,
No.
it's not just having the infrastructure, but is it actually running at what its potential? That's kind of a funny question. to save, because normally with PCs, there's that on and off. You're running a spreadsheet, just do some computation, then it's very idle. With AI, it's not like that. It's going all the time. Um,
Yeah, it's constant.
yeah,
If not, you're doing something wrong.
yeah. I mean,
Very expensive wrong.
yeah.
Well, Marty, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for bringing us up to speed on all the trends and the HIPAA compliance, and congratulations on the award and all the great work over these years.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah.